Thank you for being here at laurendeservesbetter.com. In this video, we're going to take a look at sort of how this all began, at least as far as the institutional uh, settings occurred. Back in 1995, we were locked in some pretty significant battles trying to maintain home care for Lauren in a system that is set up and driven to put people into institutions. So there was a gentleman that was a writer for the Columbus Dispatch. His name was Michael Berens, and he was working on a story about families that had people with handicaps, significant difficulties. The name of the story was Fragile Lives. We were introduced to Mr. Berens, and initially Lauren's story was just going to be a little block that existed in the bigger picture. But then I started to discuss that with Mr. Berens and everything that we had going on, and I was able to give him some documentation that I had, memos that were written, reports that had been done that showed some very alarming things about how this process was going on. One of the memos was called "Heads Up on Lauren," and really had not a whole lot to do with Lauren, but was a condemnation of her family. Um, all of which was proven to be inaccurate, bold-faced lies in many cases. And Lauren's contribution to the story went from being a small block of here's another family that faces these challenges to a 4-day series with a Sunday launch, color pictures above the fold. Now, for those of you, depending on your age, that don't know, back before the internet, that was a big deal in the newspapers. And the story chronicled the challenges, the fights that we had in trying to maintain care for her and keep her home, and ultimately ended on the day that we first checked her into an institution. So we invite you to read that. If you go down on the page here, there is a button that can be hit that takes you to the page with the actual story itself. And on there, we have loaded it as a PDF, and it's 14 pages total, and it simply goes through the story day by day. Like I said, for 4 days, it was on there, and there was coverage of our family and what Lauren was going through and placing her in a facility. It has been a nightmare ever since. That facility was an hour and a half away from where we lived, and it made it very difficult to get to see her on a regular basis. So she was 7 years old, and the decision of the system in general was to place her in an institution that far away. That institution decided really ultimately that they couldn't take care of her. First day we went to check her in, uh, they had a bed for her that clearly was not going to work, and ended up having to move her out of there. She was one of the only ambulatory people in the building, if not the only one. And she didn't stay there for too very long, about a year and a half maybe, before they moved her. So anyway, thanks again for being here. laurendeservesbetter.com. Please check us out on the social media sites. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and just started a TikTok page for her. So we appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, there are ways to contact us. Email is info@laurendeservesbetter.com.